Welcome, welcome. Good luck and best wishes. Good luck.
Learning English will be my opportunity to be able to work here.
We thank God we are here because we feel safe now.
What happens at that point when they get apprehended?
Most of the time it's going to be, sunset, right? Why? Because it's easier to conceal yourself in the dark.
I've also heard the other side, where they make up stories at the border so the Border Patrol can sign them up as refugees.
Can't remember a week where we haven't had an injury from a border wall. So we're talking about 30 feet, and that's a significant height to fall from.
We're very, very fortunate to be on the border here.
I cross typically Monday through Friday. It's what puts food on the table for me. It's what feeds my family.
Our legal commerce is being hindered by DHS and the White House's decision to pull these people away from our ports of entry.
I live here. I know what's going on.
Over the next half hour, it's the border like you've never seen it before. A team of reporters who live and work in these communities, all deployed to bring you the unvarnished reality of what it's like here. From the people who cross to those who confront them. From the hidden impacts of the border wall to the people who cross the border every day for work. Each reported over the course of 48 hours. Our journey begins in Mexico.
It's early morning as we walk across the Arizona-Mexico border. It seems with every step we take, everything changes. And the first thing we notice, a long line of people waiting to get across. Many are regular everyday border crossers, but others have been here waiting days, weeks, sometimes months to cross into the U.S. A short drive away, we find a shelter. Many asylum seekers here waiting for an appointment. They claim to have escaped crime and violence in their home countries. Some won't talk to us, afraid of retaliation. But further down the hallway, I meet Astrid. She wants to share her story. Astrid made the journey from Venezuela with her 2 children. The family left last November, traveled more than 3,000 miles across 7 borders and 7 countries. We were robbed, says Astrid. Thank God, nothing else, says the mother of 2 who claims both criminals and police alike took any little money they had. Months later, walking through man-made paths and jungles and using any means of transportation they could get, the family makes it to Nogales, Mexico. And this particular shelter is run purely by volunteers. It does belong to the city of Nogales. But what I wanted to know is, what does it drive a person, a mother of 2 in this case, to go across several borders, walk around the jungle, and finally get here after facing so much danger? My children, she says, as tears come to her eyes. Outside, Fabian, Astrid's son, is playing soccer. And I wonder, what was it like for an 8-year-old child? ¿Te dio miedo?
No.
You're not scared?
No.
Why not? ¿Por qué no? Okay, but your mom tells me that some people took money from you guys. Tu mamá me dice que les quitaron dinero.
Sí.
¿Sí? ¿En dónde? Where?
En la selva.
In la selva, in the jungle. And that is the story of many through a child's eyes. Each immigrant, each family has their own unique path to get here. And once here, their journey is not over. It now travels the roads of America's legal systems with no guarantee of being granted asylum. They could be deported or choose to stay illegally and live in the shadows. In Nogales, Mexico, Patricio Espinosa, Scripps News.
There are roughly 20,000 Border Patrol agents in America. About 9 out of 10 of them are patrolling here on the southern border.
At times we do encounter subjects with a criminal history, and at the same time we also encounter subjects with an extensive immigration history.
At the center of America's division over the border is the wall. President Trump expanded barriers and in some cases made them taller. But when President Biden took office, he ordered a pause on new construction, a position he has since tweaked. Now, a pair of reports on the impact of the divide.
Every year, hundreds of thousands of migrants cross the U.S. Mexico border. In fact, from October 2023 to January 2024, Border Patrol encountered more than 750,000 people across the Southwest. In San Diego County alone, agents saw more than 120,000 people. Migrants are crossing by any means possible, waiting at the ports of entries, hiking through the desert, and even climbing over the border wall.
I can't remember a week where we haven't had an injury from a border wall incident since, years and years.
Dr. Joseph Chachi has seen many migrants end up on his operating table after falling off the border wall. The UC San Diego neurosurgeon has been tracking border wall falls for the past 6 years. He calls each instance a tragedy.
It's particularly striking when you're taking care of a severely injured patient that's shackled to the gurney that they're coming into the operating room on. It's a visual that is just really, it affects you.
And he's seeing more and more. He says in 2023, UCSD Health saw 500 head injuries from these kinds of incidents, many needing surgery. Another increasing trend is more women getting hurt.
So we're talking about 30 feet, and that's a significant height to fall from. If you think about the structure of the wall, it was not designed in such a way that climbing should be easy.
In the past 2 weeks alone, paramedics in San Diego County transported nearly 24 people to the hospital who fell from the border wall. When the government nearly doubled the height of the border wall, the severity of injuries increased, and so did the cost of care. Since 2020, it's costing nearly $250,000 per patient to treat traumatic head injuries. Who's paying for this?
Clearly there's a huge governmental expense that's borne by the local, state, county, federal government, passed on to revenue from taxes and other things. So all of us are paying for it.
Traumatic injuries often mean extensive aftercare. Often, Dr. Chachi doesn't know who will make a full recovery.
If they're in custody, they will get care. That I can assure you. I just don't know what happens when they go out of our sphere.
He says one death is too many, but the reality is some will die despite surgery. But Dr. Chachi does say migrants leave the hospital grateful.
It's purely editorial, but I get a lot of sense of love for this country from some of these folks.
For him, that's important because he's part of an immigrant family.
My family came from Europe, and I never saw people who loved this country more than all that group of immigrants in my parents' generation. They really taught a love for this country that I think emphasizes why almost everyone agrees that immigration is really important and fundamental.
UCSD researchers are continuing to track this trend, and they've now enlisted the help of Arizona and Texas researchers. In San Isidro, I'm Sierra Encinas, Scripps News, San Diego.
As you drive along the southern border, there are large stretches of wall, but then often you just run into these open spaces. This one only covered by barbed wire and a trench. It's something one rancher says has to change.
I live here. I know what's going on.
Jim Chilton has lived on this ranch since 1991.
This is the very southern end of the ranch. I have 5.5 miles of the international boundary.
A large chunk is covered with Trump-era fencing, adding on to and in some cases replacing Obama-era fencing, which now sits discarded on private land. When President Biden campaigned in 2020, he promised there wouldn't be another foot of wall built.
The wall stopped here when Biden took office the first day. He canceled all work on the wall. So where do people go? They come around the end of the wall.
About 100 feet from the wall, Chilton has to fix this makeshift gate about once every 2 weeks. Broken open, he says, by people crossing his ranch.
I have found it closed before, but that's unusual.
Chilton has 5 cameras on his expansive property and says he's captured more than 3,000 different images of people crossing his land, many by the cover of night or in camouflage.
They don't want to get caught. And then the other group are migrants, men, women, children. They come through here and they walk down this road to try to be apprehended. So there's 2 different types of people coming across the ranch.
The Department of Homeland Security encountered nearly 2.5 million people along the southern border in fiscal year 2023, encountering more than 300,000 people alone this past December. Chilton believes it's likely an undercount.
Haven't seen any Border Patrol for 4.5 months. Now, they're busy in Tucson processing people that have walked through here and down the road.
Even in portions where a wall does exist, there are gaps, even with materials sitting nearby, unused to fill the hole.
If you have a wall with gaps in it, it doesn't do a lot of good.
As he drives this portion of the wall, Chilton chuckles at no trespassing signs.
Something has got to change.
Nearly every time he drives this path, he sees migrants, many dropped at the wall, and he says Border Patrol has told him it's the cartel coordinating the trips. In October, the Biden administration begrudgingly greenlit an expansion of the wall in Texas using funds allocated during the Trump administration.
I hope and pray that the next president, I don't care who it is, finishes the wall, secures the border.
But for now, no plans for new construction here. Fort Hatchett, Scripps News, Arivaca.
Ahead, the economic reality at the border. People going back and forth every day. Plus, what happens in the 48 hours after the migrants are sent to northern states. This is Scripps News Reports.
I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
You're watching a special edition of Scripps News Reports. I'm Jim Avila. We sent more than a dozen reporting teams out along the border, all with the same mission. Take 48 hours, speak to people in the community, show us the reality of life here. Let's get back to that reporting.
Under the cover of darkness, 3 migrants cross over from Mexico, here at the border wall just outside of Yuma. But Border Patrol agents are waiting nearby and quickly take them into custody. Just a short drive away, about 20 migrants are camping out, waiting for Border Patrol to arrive so they can begin their requests for asylum.
¿Tienes frío?
Sí, mucho frío. Here is where we meet Maritza and her daughter Renata, who have built a small fire to keep warm on this chilly desert night. Maritza tells me they're fleeing gang violence in Chile.
¿Tienes miedo de que ellos te van a matar o matar a tu hija?
Sí, porque tú no juegas con ellos. Maritza says she was worried the gangs would kill her and her daughter. Sadly, the journey itself would be full of its own risks.
Es difícil, ¿sabe? Migrar no es fácil.
She tells me immigrating isn't easy. Along the way, Maritza says people posing as police in Mexico stole all of her money.
The sun has just come up here at the border crossing just outside of Yuma. There are about 24 people here right now, still waiting to be processed by the Border Patrol. This is a major milestone to reach this point, but for so many of these people, the journey is just beginning.
After they're apprehended, migrants are taken to the Yuma Sector Border Patrol headquarters.
What happens at that point when they get apprehended?
We immediately try to collect all the information, make sure that we're taking their fingerprints, we're taking their biographical information, where they're from, taking their photograph.
After they're cleared and background checked, migrants are released. Many in Yuma County come here to the Regional Center for Border Health, serving as a transition center.
Você quer mejor oportunidade para a família?
Sí.
So Delano's from Brazil, and he tells me that he's just looking for a better opportunity for his family. So after leaving the Regional Center for Border Health in Somerton, migrants then board buses just like the one I'm on right now to head to Phoenix Sky Harbor, where they will be able to fly to stay with friends, stay with family as their asylum requests play out. There's a couple dozen people on this bus with me right now. And in talking to them, what I'm finding out is that although the physical journey is coming to an end soon, the emotional journey is really just beginning.
Like Casimiro, a 27-year-old from Guatemala, who's eager to show me a photo of his wife and daughter, who he had to leave behind.
¿Fue difícil dejar a tu esposa?
Muy difícil.
But he tells me leaving his wife behind was incredibly difficult. The journey has been emotionally and physically traumatic.
Toda la noche no pude dormir por el mismo frío. Ratos dormía y despertaba y temblando otra vez.
He said it was so cold in the desert that he couldn't even sleep. He said he would fall asleep for a little and then he would wake up because he would just start shaking. On the bus, after days of no rest, finally a chance to sleep. 3 hours later, we reached Sky Harbor. ¿Cómo te sientes ya que estás aquí en el aeropuerto? ¿Cómo te sientes?
Emocionante.
Casimiro tells me he's excited to be one step closer to seeing his family in LA. The migrants are then escorted inside to wait for their flights.
Welcome to America, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Good luck and best wishes. Good luck.
As the elevator door closes, so too does this leg of the journey.
Gracias a ustedes.
Nick Saletti, Scripps News.
Here in Nogales, they understand something often lost in all the discussion of people crossing the border. That's the positive value of being next to Mexico, with all the cargo that comes across. Here in Nogales alone, about 400,000 trucks per year bring in millions of dollars worth of products you use and food that you eat. At Chamberlain Distributing, workers waste no time moving fresh food off trucks coming from Mexico or onto other trucks that can move it all over the United States. On this day at the border, it's corn. But on other days, it could be fresh tomatoes, squash, grapes. It's really a menu too long to list.
We're very, very fortunate to be on the border here.
Jaime Chamberlain says cross-border produce has been a booming business for 100 years, and his family's been in it for more than 50.
Over $30 billion worth of cross-border business is done here in Nogales between manufactured goods and fruits and vegetables. Over $11 million a day is spent in the state of Arizona through Mexican nationals crossing our ports of entry every single day. That's an incredible number and an incredible economic generator that we have.
The trucks also bring in goods manufactured in Mexico. Companies from the U.S. and the rest of the world use factories in Mexico to build cars, electronics, medical devices, and other products. Businesses on the U.S. side provide components and expertise. Better stability and shorter supply chains have helped Mexico replace China as our #1 trade partner. We're in Nogales on a quiet weekday. On weekends, Morley Avenue is busy with Mexican shoppers, enjoying more variety and better bargains on the Arizona side of the border. A pedestrian gate makes it easy to bag up bargains and head home to Mexico. Right now, a strong peso helps their money go farther. But surges of immigrants can choke off the commerce. Jaime Chamberlain is a leader on the local port authority. He says when Homeland Security takes inspectors off the ports to process migrants, it interferes with fast, efficient inspectors that speed up cargo and stop illegal drugs.
Our legal commerce is being hindered by DHS and the White House's and the administration's decision to pull these people away from our ports of entry. And for us, as businessmen and women, we need that security. We need our ports of entry to be as efficient as possible. We need them to be staffed correctly, and we need them to be funded correctly.
And he says that will protect business so valuable, it's a matter of national security. In Nogales, Arizona, Craig Smith, Scripps News.
Up next on the ground in New York, 48 hours after a migrant arrives, what happens?
Power, what happens when a migrant is now dropped off? I'm outside of the Roosevelt Hotel here in Midtown Manhattan. This is one of the first places migrants see once they enter New York City.
City officials say at least 180,000 asylum seekers have arrived in the Big Apple since April of 2022. About 65,000 remain in the city's care, a number propelled by the governors of Texas and Arizona. Both states have been sending charter buses full of migrants to Democratic-controlled cities to highlight the migrant crisis at the border.
Power, what happens when a migrant is now dropped off in New Jersey?
Someone pays for their ticket to come to New York City. They arrive at Penn Station. At Penn Station, we're there to greet them, welcome them, and then we take them to the arrival center, which is the Roosevelt Hotel.
The new arrivals wait in line in hopes of getting a space in the city's shelter system, like tents built on Randall's Island, a about 3 miles from Upper Manhattan, one of the largest sites in the city, housing some 3,000 migrants.
Then they get our information so that we can follow up with them and help them with lawyers, with food, with clothing, with all the process that they need in order to become self-sufficient.
It's going.
24-year-old Brandon Hill is from Venezuela. He started his asylum-seeking process with the help he received at the organization. He now volunteers and helps other migrants.
Me siento parte de su familia y eso fue lo que me hizo querer ayudarlos, ser voluntario y brindarle la misma ayuda a los inmigrantes que también vienen acá.
Hill arrived in New York in June of 2022. He now has his work permit, found a job at a fast food restaurant, and pays for a room in an apartment with roommates.
¿A qué vino a Estados Unidos?
Hacer una vida acá. Hacer una vida acá, aportar a que mis hijos tengan una buena educación, que prosperen como ser humano.
Meanwhile, Mendoza says she hopes to get out of the shelter system soon. She was told her family qualifies for an apartment.
Me gustaría aprender el inglés.
And Hill, he's receiving free classes at the public library.
You're welcome.
He dreams of legalizing his status and finishing his graphic design career he couldn't complete in Venezuela. Axel Turcios, Scripps News, New York City.
Back here in San Ysidro, California, in towns like these, Border Patrol encountered record numbers of immigrants last year, more than 3 million. Virtually everyone agrees it's an unsustainable pace, pushing the limits of America's power to process them. Our mission here, to give you the reality. For now, reporting for Scripps News, I'm Jim Oppel.